I want to briefly talk about fasting. I have fasted 3 7-day fasts in the past year and a half. So, 3 different times every 6 months for the past year and a half, I fasted for an entire week. So, I've done a 7-day fast. My first time was a year and a half ago. Before that, I've been doing fasting for years. I first started properly fasting at the age of 13, 14 in order to lose weight. And then that led me into doing a 1-day fast. And then that led me into doing a 2-day fast. And then once I really wanted to commit and actually have benefits to my autoimmune system, I wanted to do a longer fast for 3 4 days. So I started slowly and I decided every 6 months I'm going to do a long fast, a minimum of 3 days. I did that a few times, and then it led me to thinking about doing a 7-day fast, which is found to destroy cancer. Like, it's one of the only things essentially that would naturally help with shrinking a tumor. So destroy cancer is an extreme sentence for sure. But I wanted to talk about how to get into fasting, how to make it so-called easier for yourself, even though that's not how you should be thinking of it in the first place, which goes into my first thing. It's don't think about it. Don't think about the food. Don't think about it as if you're on a fast. Of course, be self-aware. Of course, you have to have a mental talk to yourself that, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to finish this. But you have to be so focused on whatever it is that you're doing in life that the fasting actually helps fuel that. And the fasting is a challenge to whatever mission you have at the moment. So that could be something that has to do with career. It could be something that has to do with, relationships. It could be something that has to do with building some sort of art, creating something. I really do think that creation is what drives us, and that's what our mission should be tied towards and should be linked with some sort of level of creation, right? And I think when you fast, I know when you fast, you get a certain creative energy that is unlike any other, because you have to go so within yourself, because your body isn't getting proper fuel. So it's getting fueled by ketones, like biologically. But how I see it is it's getting fueled by your creative spirit and a certain type of inner energy that gets blocked or goes down when you eat food, have caffeine, when take physical things for energy. It's sort of you're using that energy instead of yourself, and it's yourself using that energy. But when you fast, it's sort of like, what are you getting energy from? If you had to think about it on a spiritual level, what are you getting energy from? And that's my next thing. My first thing is, don't think about food. Think about your mission. Think about your goal. Think about your career. Think about whatever it is that you're trying to achieve at the moment. Use that creative energy. Even though your body is weak, your mind should be sharp and your soul should be awakened. You should see things like an X-ray. Like, you see through things. And I mean that spiritually. I mean that in what you really need to do, in revelation of your life, essentially. So a lot of my fasting actually opened my eyes to things I was running away from and things that I was fearing, essentially. Because you have to reach such an inner energy when you're fasting, because you don't have any external things that you're grabbing energy from. Even if you're taking water and electrolytes, all that really does is hydrate you, which is like the bare minimum. And even then, recently I did sort of a dry fast. I barely took any water and electrolytes, which is not recommended. Do not do that. But a dry fast is something else. You just reach a different level of what a fast is. So my next thing is spirituality. So I really do think that incorporating some sort of prayer, whether you're religious or not, some sort of meditation, right? You need to realize that when your body is weak, your spirit is strong and your spirit takes over. So you tap into certain powers, let's say, that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise because there's a blockage with the food you're eating or whatever you're drinking or the things you're feeding yourself, even through what you're watching on the phone. And I find that the more time you spend alone and the more time you spend with your thoughts and the more time you spend praying and observing yourself, when you fast, it's a different level. It's unlike any other. You can attract energy at such a high level, it genuinely feels like a superpower. But you have to be very careful not to fall into the trap of distracting yourself and getting into dopamine because you're fearing that sort of boredom. You have to go through that boredom and find your spirit, right? So I really do think connect to your spirit, connect to God, connect to prayer and listening and observing yourself and your mind and your thoughts and quieting certain thoughts and coming into control. Because if you can control what you can put in your mouth, you can control what you think about. It's just harder, right? But when you fast, everything becomes easier. So it's the perfect time to go into your spirit because your flesh, the things that puts us down, the thing that makes us sin, it's weak. So your spirit takes over and your spirit has to be strong. Your willpower, right? So that's the second thing. And then the last thing I would say is try to ignore any sort of negative energy. And I know that sounds like, what do you mean by negative energy? Any sort of thing that throws you off, right? So it could be certain friends, it could be something you're listening to, it could be something you're reading. If it throws you off and you feel a certain like tiredness or exhaustion from it, most probably it's taking up a lot of energy. I think when you breathe, for example, right, our most necessary thing, when you breathe, you get energy from the world, right? And you take it in and you let it out. Take it in and you let it out. Everything is like that. Everything around you is energy. And I think you need to be awake about the things that are affecting you and you don't even realize it. Because let's say you have a negative energy around you of some sort, right? Maybe it's a TV show that you're watching and you don't even realize, or the type of music you're listening to. It's a perfect example. And what you do is you hang around with certain people or you do certain things to validate that negative energy. When you're fasting, that validation sort of goes outside of you because you're in such a primal state that you can't get validation from things like that. So you go so deep within and you question, like, why do I do this? Why do I think about this? Why is this affecting me negatively, right? And you can just feel it 10 times more. So keep an eye on negative energy and how your body responds physically and mentally to certain energies. Anything from music to the people you hang around with. And just watch when you get irritated, watch when you get angry, watch when you just get exhausted out of nowhere. And you're like, the fast was going so well. And then at one point, I just sort of felt maybe that's not just the fast. Maybe it's a negative energy next to you. Maybe it's a certain habit. Maybe it's something you're listening to. Maybe it's something you're watching, right? So I would really say breathe, focus on your breath, and meditate on your breath to understand this negative energy. If you can hear your breath, how it is when you play certain music and you just like pause for a second and you go, let me listen to my heart. Let me see how I'm breathing. Am I breathing fast? Am I stressed, right? So I would say be hyper aware of your physical response, which is usually through your breath, of energy, period. So these are the things I wanted to talk about when it comes to fasting. Just wanted to make a quick video explaining these things. I could go more into detail about like electrolytes and salt and when to wake up, when to sleep, but really, is that what's the hardest part of fasting? No. I'm telling you, be careful how you fast. Be careful of the physical things of, you don't faint and you don't pass out, or you don't deprive yourself of nutrients and things of this nature. But to be honest, for me personally, that stuff was easy. Like not fainting, I really do think that's a spiritual thing. I think when you don't faint, it's because you're thinking, and the minute you stop thinking, you're like the light goes out. Like you just black. I have no idea what that's like. I've never fainted before. And I really do think that's a spiritual thing, where when you think so much, that light sort of never goes off. And what I think it is consciousness. And fasting challenges that. It challenges your consciousness, and you find yourself like on autopilot for like hours even, where you're like, what am I doing? Like I've just been sort of drifting by for the past hour and I haven't even been thinking. And you sort of feel that darkness and that light in your mind shrink. But what happens in fasting is it shrinks, and then it grows, and then it grows, and it grows, and it grows, and it grows. If you're careful physically, of course. But I think if you take care of the spirit, the mind, and then the body, that's when you're going to excel. So listen to your breath, pray, and what was the first thing? I don't remember the first thing. And see, I need to do some fasting because my memory is gone. Just be attentive. Be attentive to, every sort of little thing that comes up. And I'm not saying hyper analyze, but be aware, be awake, be conscious of what you're doing. So the first thing I said is try not to think too much about food. Think about your mission. The second thing is focus on your spirit, pray, connect, and go to that spiritual inner world. Delve into that. And then the third thing is watch yourself. From an outside perspective, hear your own breath. Listen to how you breathe. Listen to how you react to any sort of energy. So these are the things. They're quite basic, but they're really hard to do, especially when you're starving, because you're in such a mental place where you can't even think about anything besides food for so long that you become numb to things. But if you go through that and you say, I'm going to embrace this and see where it goes, fasting is one of the most powerful things you can do. It can be dangerous, but it can be insanely powerful, which makes sense. With power comes danger, and with power comes responsibility. So be responsible. Think about these things. Try to incorporate them next time you're doing a fast. You don't have to jump into a long fast. Just start off slow. Start off with intermittent fasting. See how you do. Take it easy. Watch how your body reacts. Educate yourself on the biology, and go from there. Try to ease yourself into it. And also be aware of your body type. Do you have a lot of fat? Are you very skinny? Do you have muscle? Have you been dieting? Is it your first time? Be aware of these things. Not everyone is built the same. Not everyone has the same sort of body fat percentage, same muscle mass, same experience with when they eat and how they eat, what they eat. So this is a very complex topic, but if you are going to do a long-term fast and you already have some experience, I would incorporate these things because they're extremely beneficial and, in my opinion, crucial. So next time you do a fast, take a listen to this YouTube video and incorporate these things into that fast.